So one thing I feel called to share with you today is something that's been on my mind for a while, and I've had a lot of synchronicities about. But essentially what it is that the soul is like a horse, and the human self is like the rider. The rider person being the one riding the horse. And I remember I had this dream about a year ago that was so beautiful, where I was riding on this horse and it was just like in a circle. And it took a little while to get the rhythm right, but as soon as I had the rhythm and the flow down with the horse, it felt as if we were one and we were just flying through the air. And it's hard to put into words how amazing that feeling was. And I didn't know how to make sense of that dream at the time, about a year ago, but now it's starting to become so much more clear for me. And I've been reading this book, The Untethered Soul, and I love it so much. And on the cover is just this single horse galloping on the beach. And the feeling I had is my horse, that is the metaphor for the soul, cannot be tamed. And I have this feeling that whenever my human self tries to tame my soul, the soul just goes crazy and it gets upset, and it's like, no, we're not going to do that. And how this manifests in my life feels like every day and every moment, all I'm doing is going where the energy wants to flow. And in other words, my horse that I'm riding already knows where it wants to be. It already knows where it wants to go. And my role as this human self that I'm occupying for the time being is to just release control and allow the horse to guide me. It's up to my soul to decide where I go next. It's not up to my mind and my human self. And lately I've been reading more books, having more intuitive hits, and even through my own writing, to see that I'm not my thoughts. And I don't believe anyone is their thoughts. And to actually go a level deeper than the thoughts that go on in my head. And I see my thoughts a lot more clearly when I meditate or just sit in stillness. And it's so interesting because I see so much this stuff about your thoughts create your reality. And I believe that's true on one level, but that's more at the soul level. And at the human level, I don't think we choose our thoughts. When I meditate, I've noticed thoughts come and go all the time. And they're all over the place. My thoughts cover an entire spectrum. And no matter what thoughts come up, it's taken me a while to realize that they're not mine and they're not under my control. I've done some experiments in my life where I just take a step back and say, I'm going to not think about anything for the next hour. Let's see what my body does, where my thoughts go. What happens naturally when I don't try to do things? And what I notice is my body will just have an impulse and all of a sudden I'm going to make a cup of tea. Or I'll have an impulse and all of a sudden I'm watching a YouTube video or writing something. And I used to think that these impulses were bad, that I need to rein in those impulses using my discipline. And if I left those disciplines or those impulses up to their own, I would never get anything done and I wouldn't be safe. And in other words, I thought my mind was the one keeping me safe. But what my mind was really doing was trying to tame a horse that can never be tamed. And I see now that my soul can never be tamed. It's not meant to be tamed. I have tried for many years to try and force my will from my mind onto my soul and say, we got to do this. It's the only thing that's going to keep me safe. And it just got more and more uncomfortable inside of my body until my inner soul was saying, there's no way we're doing that. I'm going to make it so uncomfortable for you that you're going to have to do what I want you to do, which is divinely aligned, divinely guided. And I read from the Tao Te Ching earlier today that the great way is easy, but most people prefer taking the side paths. And I truly believe that letting go and allowing the soul to drive, allowing that horse to guide you, or in this case to guide me, is the great easy way. I do have this feeling that life is meant to be easy. It's not meant to be a struggle. And I'm seeing now what that means for me. And for me personally, That means just letting go. If my mind starts to freak out, I sit back and I go into the observer mode, and I realize I'm not the one freaking out. It's my mind that's freaking out. And these thoughts that are fearful are not mine. And the more I do this, the more I realize that I have a choice from the place of observation. From the observer's point of view, if I start to feel all this fear and anxiety, I don't have to follow it down the rabbit hole of trying to fix it. And it's so interesting the more one meditates, because what I've realized is a lot of times if I start to feel anxious, and there's the feeling of anxiousness present within me, I'll start to have thoughts about people I should connect with because it's been too long, or how I'm not going to have enough money to pay my bills, or something else. And when I don't buy into those stories of the mind, I realize that my feeling of anxiety in that moment has nothing to do with my relationships and has nothing to do with the amount of money that I have. It's the feeling of anxiety that comes up first that it then looks for a story to attach itself to, which leads me to believe that I need to fix that story or change that story in order to make the anxiety go away. But whenever I've done that, then all of a sudden I become anxious about a completely different area of my life. Let's say there's plenty of money, or money just enters my life, but the feeling of anxiety is still present within my body. All of a sudden now my anxiousness turns to the next problem on this never-ending list of problems. And then all of a sudden the feeling of anxiety will just go away, and these things that I was so worried about maybe a couple minutes ago no longer affect me at all. And I feel free to just drink tea or watch a TV show, and I don't have any feelings of anxiousness, even though nothing in the outside world appeared to have shifted. So what I'm realizing is we are not our thoughts and we are not our emotions. Both of those are temporary visitors within our energetic field, but we're the ones observing what comes up. And the reason why this is so important with sitting in the seat of your soul is if your soul is this wild, untamable horse, you don't have to buy into those thoughts or emotions that say you can't allow your mind or your human self to lose control. Whenever that feeling comes up where you're just leading with intuition and there's a force that's greater than you driving you to do the things you do, and then a fearful thought comes up, you don't have to follow that story. You don't have to try and pull up on the reins and say, this is too much, I need to take care of this fearful thought or emotion. Instead, you can just witness it, let it be as it is without changing it, and let your soul keep riding. Let your soul keep driving you. And what's taken me so long to realize in my experience is that the quickest way to get rid of these emotions that I don't typically enjoy, such as fear or anxiety, is to allow them to fully present themselves in my field, to witness them without judgment. They are what they are and they're not me. And all of a sudden they pass. For so many times I've tried to fix it, and that's like adding fuel to the fire. If I'm feeling anxious and I try to fix my anxiousness by fixing these perceived problems in the outside world, my feeling of anxiousness grows and grows and grows. But instead, when I'm feeling anxious, if I meditate on it or just observe it without judgment, I notice that I'm anxious one moment and all of a sudden the feeling of anxiousness goes away. And I'm focused on the next part of my life experience. And how ironic it is that the best way to solve most of my problems is to realize that none of them were problems in the first place. And they're just problems that were created by the mind, when really there was just a feeling that wanted to be witnessed and observed, non-judgmentally. And I do notice that sometimes there are real problems that need to be dealt with. But 90% of the time, the problems that my mind makes up don't need me to take any specific actions in the world to solve them. They're just fears or anxieties about something that hasn't happened yet, and most likely will never happen. And to me, this is what true freedom is. True freedom isn't having a lot of money while still having that feeling of fear be something that one's always trying to fight and push away until it goes away completely. Freedom is letting things pass and realizing that you're not those passing things. Freedom is letting your soul drive. And I love this. This is the greatest feeling in my entire life, where I wake up and I have no idea what I'm going to do that day. And I don't have an impulse, but I just sit and wait until I have an impulse. And as soon as I have an impulse, I follow that impulse. And what this does is it turns every single day into an adventure. And although it's scary at first and my mind's freaking out because it no longer has any control, I found that the more I do this, the more I have the most intimate and healthy relationships that satisfy my soul at a deep level. The more fulfilled I feel with my work and my purpose, and the more effortlessly these beautiful things just come through me. And the more fun and joy that I have in my day-to-day life experience. Now, I know for me personally, one of the hardest things to let go of is all the hard work that my mind has put into restricting my soul's effort. And it's hard to spend 26 years trying to force things and then realize that the best way to grow and to have fun and to have everything that I've ever wanted is to realize that I just need to completely let go of that past. And it's not building up to something greater. It was something that needed to happen, but now it needs to be completely let go of. It's almost as if, to use a material metaphor, I had to learn how to build a house. I needed to work really hard, relentlessly to build that house. And then all of a sudden I need to give away that house to someone I don't even know. And that's the only way for me to grow spiritually. That's what it feels like to follow my soul completely, without question. All of this stuff that I've worked so hard for on the mental level needs to be let go of so that my horse can go wherever it wants to go. Because ultimately I realized that by my mind trying to keep me safe is how I've built the stables, I don't know how you say that, the fences around my horse of my soul. And in an effort to keep myself safe, I've kept myself locked in like a ship that never left the harbor. And my soul needs to move. My soul is wild at heart, and it needs to be free. It needs to be free to run through the ocean, to run through the mountains, and not have any restrictions placed upon it by my human self. And I feel so deeply that this is how all good things come. I can only speak to my own experience, but the more I let my soul drive and I just release and let go of control, the more magic enters my life. And the more things that my mind would have thought of as miracles that are impossible to make happen, just happen out of nowhere. And the best experiences I ever have are the most effortless, which is the completely opposite of how my mind has thought the world works and how my mind has been operating. So I feel like I'm riding the horse of my soul now, and my hair is flowing freely and the wind's making it go, and I'm running along the beach and the ocean, and I can smell the fresh salt water just against my bare chest, and I'm going full speed, and this horse is galloping and galloping and galloping. And that to me is true freedom and the epitome of what it means to have an untethered soul. So that's all I have for you. That's my update for today. I'm sending you a lot of love on your journey, wherever you're at, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I also have a link in the description to this video or somewhere near this video where you can check out the books that I've written, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and send me a donation if you feel called to it. That's it. Have a great day.